And the last part we're going to review before we learn about chemical reaction is the chemical bonding. Um, there are totally 118 type of different kinds of elements in the world, but around us there's so many different things. How do they form different things? Let's have a look. Okay, so basically we have learned compound. A compound contains two or more different kinds of atoms. They didn't just simply mixed up, they form a chemical bond in between. Okay, those because of the chemical bond, we have infinite kinds of compounds that we use them every day. Also, there are another word called molecules. Some students got confused about these two words. Basically, a molecule contains two or more atoms. Those atoms can be the same or can be different, like oxygen gas. It can contains two oxygen molecule atoms in there, and we don't call it a compound normally. We just say it's a molecule because a compound need to contain two or more different kinds of atoms, like sodium chloride. So normally we call a water molecule, um, oxygen molecule. So mainly just covalent bond stuff. Mainly we call them molecules, and compounds contains two or more different kinds of atoms. Molecules contains two or more atoms. Those atoms can be the same or different. Okay, like oxygen, nitrogen, water, we call them molecules normally. Okay, so what is a chemical bond? Okay, a chemical bond, a bond means like like connection, right? So basically, this is talking about a lasting attraction between atoms. The atoms and atoms, for example, sodium chloride, they form table salt, and there is an attraction between sodium chloride. So this attraction cannot be break easily. It's a lasting attraction between atoms. How can they form this kind of attraction? Let's have a look. Okay, so first of all, the type of bond we learned is called an ionic bond. Ionic bond forms between ions. What kind of ions? The oppositely charged ions. Because they have opposite charge, there's an electrostatic attraction between the positive charged ion and negative charged ion. How do they form? Okay, we learned ions yesterday. We reviewed it. So mainly just each atom want to have a stable or have a full valence electron arrangement. Sodium have one valence electron, it really wants to give away. And chlorine has seven, it needs to get one more. So this when sodium and chlorine react with each other, we're going to learn about the chemical reaction. What happens is sodium gave away one electron to chlorine and chlorine received it, and sodium, because it lost one electron, it become to a positive one charge. Chlorine gain one electron, become to a negative one charge. And positive and negative in chemistry, we know it, they attract each other because they have opposite charge. Okay, we call this electrostatic attraction. So in the winter, you may get shocked when when you touch a sweater. It's a similar kind of thing. Okay, it's an attraction or a charge. Okay, ionic bond forms only between metals and nonmetals, as what we went through yesterday. Basically today, it's a ions. For metals are always form positive ions. All of those yellow color ones, they have positive charges because they lose electrons. Okay, all the nonmetals, all of those green color ones, except these noble gases, and they form negative charge ions. That means they gain electrons. So when a metal meet with a nonmetal, they are like the perfect match in heaven, we call them. Okay, so that's ionic bond, and they formed through electron transfer. The electron transfer from the metal to the nonmetal. Okay, the other type of bond is called a covalent bond. What is a covalent bond? Covalent bond means co means together, right? It means sharing electrons. Neither of them would lose or gain electron because like they have similar ability to attract electrons. So oxygen, when oxygen and hydrogen meet together, and hydrogen contribute one electron, oxygen contribute one, both of those electrons would move around hydrogen oxygen. It formed a covalent bond. And here's the structure of water, and people just say it look like a Mickey Mouse. Okay, Covalent bond forms only between nonmetals and nonmetals. Okay, so why do atoms form chemical bonds? Why do they bond together? Why don't they just stay as singles? Okay, here's the thing. It's really to be more stable. The whole world want to be more stable. Okay, in the chemistry point of view, it's like to have a full valence electron arrangement, right? The octet rule we learned, or the same electron arrangement as the noble gases. Noble gases are very stable. They don't react with other stuff. Okay, actually, in the most common point of view, or the most simple explanation, is just to be more stable. Okay, so why do atoms form different kinds of chemical bonds? Why metals and nonmetals form ionic bonds, and nonmetals form covalent bonds? Is here is we didn't really learn some more deep concept about this, but I do need you to understand this. It's really the ability to attract electrons. Nonmetals have more ability, a higher ability to attract the electrons than metals. So metals just gave away, non-metals receive. And when a non-metal and non-metal meet with each other, they have very similar ability to attract electrons. It's like a tug war. Okay, you have the similar ability as me, so neither of them would want to give away. So what they do is they share. Okay, it's really about ability to attract electrons. Okay, so the last thing I need you to know is the chemical formula part. I'm not going to require you to be able to write a chemical formula when we learn about chemical reactions. But one thing you need to know is, for example, this is MgCl2. For any single element, the first letter is always capitalized, the second one is always small case. So when you see Mg, that's one element. Okay, and the Cl, that's one element. Mg is magnesium, Cl is chloride. Okay, so what does this number 2 mean here? This means there are two chlorine ions to pair up with one magnesium ion to form magnesium chloride. It's all because one magnesium needs to give away two electrons, and one chlorine can only receive one. So magnesium gave away two. It needs two chlorine atoms to pair up with one magnesium. So magnesium form a positive 2 charge, each chlorine form a negative 1 charge. Again, we are not going to really require you to be able to write this formula, but you need to understand that number 2, tiny number 2 means it's two chlorine pair up with one magnesium. When there's no number, it means 1. Okay, the same as a covalent compound. For example, carbon dioxide, this dioxide means two oxygen, okay, two oxygen atoms to share electrons with one carbon atom. When we learn about chemical reaction, I really need you to understand this. Okay, when there's no number, it means 1. One carbon, two oxygen. Okay, one magnesium, two chloride. That's everything we need to know before we do the chemical reaction unit. And a few questions to challenge you at the end. Just think about this, please. Which part of the subatomic particles are responsible for chemical bonding? Protons, neutrons, or electrons? Which one we have been talking about in the previous slides? What are the valence electrons? How many valence electrons do most atoms need to have in the most outer shell so they can be stable? And why do metals turn to form positive ions? Means why they lose electrons. And non-metals turn to form negative ions. Consider about the electron arrangement for metals and non-metals, and also the ability of them to attract electrons. Thank you very much. And we're going to go through more detail during the live class.